All right, there is going to be an award issued out in a few weeks in the National Football League, and it's called the Defensive Player of the Year. And it appears, from all indications, that Detroit's own, from the University of Cincinnati, Sauce Gardner.
Detroit Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Then
You said Defensive Player of the Year.
Oh, I'm sorry, Defensive Rookie of the Year. My bad. Sauce Gardner is probably going to win the award. But the way Aidan Hutchinson came on it towards the end, it is not out of the question that he deserves to be in consideration. I think he would be second. I would also vote for Gardner if it was up to me. But it's not up to me. And in our little discussion here right now, it's up to you. 248-539-9797. Who's the Defensive Rookie of the Year in your mind, John Jansen?
Well, if you're looking over at 17-game schedule, and it may be that Sauce over 17 games was more consistent, because we talked about Hutch and the fact that, hey, he had, in the first half of the season, he basically had one half where he really stood out.
Right, that's it.
But over the course of 17 games, when you look at what he was able to do in those last 9 games, and you know, stats do matter, but they don't tell the entire story.
Right.
He's got more interceptions than Sauce has.
Yes.
And some of that is situational, some of that's opportunistic. But from a defensive lineman's perspective, he had 9.5 sacks, had the 3 interceptions, fumble recoveries. I mean, he was a force to be reckoned with. Not just, he could have been a lot better in Carolina against the run. That's, I think, the one game where people are going to look at and say, in this great run that he was having at the second half of the season, where was he in the Carolina game? Mm-hmm. The number of snaps that he took throughout the course of the season, his availability, all of those different things lead you to believe that he should at least be in the running with Sauce Gardner. Now, Sauce, there's an argument to be made that he is one of the top 2 corners in the entire NFL.
Correct.
And so when you're talking about I think the Defensive Rookie of the Year, and this has taken me a little while and removing myself from the season for me to get to and setting my fandom aside of Hutch and what we want here in Detroit. When you're talking about is Hutch, and let's just call it in the NFC, is he one of the top 3 edge defenders?
No.
Okay, so if you're talking about in the AFC now with Sauce Gardner, is he one of the top 3 corners? And I think we've kind of already identified that he might be one of the top 3 in the entire NFL.
Correct.
That leads to me to believe, as much as I don't want to admit it, that it should be Sauce Gardner. And it's taken me some time, because when you look at there was an award that came out, well, it was at after the last week of the season, where Hutch was given the Defensive Rookie of the Month. And it was given out 4 times. He was given that award 2 out of the 4 times. Mm-hmm. Sauce Gardner was never given that award.
True.
And so you're looking at it going, okay, well, if other people in the NFL has identified him as having that type of impact, then why wouldn't he be the Defensive Rookie of the Year?
Because you mentioned it before, consistency. So there were some weeks, right? You said that he was absolutely stellar, and that's why he got that award. And whereas Gardner was really consistent. Now, it's tough to figure out stats besides interceptions and sacks for defensive backs, right?
Yeah.
Here's some stuff for you. Not once in the 17 games would you say that he suffered a letdown. He led the NFL with 20 passes defended, 2 interceptions, 75 tackles. If whatever you think of Pro Football Focus, good or bad, they gave him an overall grade of 90.2, tops among all corners in the NFL. Mm-hmm. In 642 coverage snaps, he allowed 344 yards receiving. That's a ridiculously low number. Quarterbacks completed only 45% of their passes against him, and he allowed 1 touchdown. Now, later in the season, including against his hometown Detroit Lions, they didn't even go. They wouldn't even challenge him.
Right.
He basically can, and in some cases, takes away the best receiver or one of the receivers away. And
even if he doesn't take away that receiver, he takes away that third of the field.
Right. So statistically, it might not show up, but I think those are the reasons why he should be the defensive rookie of the year in the National Football League.
Yeah.
And Hutchinson should be second.
It just seems to me that Gardner had the better first half of the season or so, and that Hutchinson had the second.
Well,
and it feels like this thing was handed to Gardner
Well,
halfway through the year.
But part of that reason is because they didn't throw to him that much in the second half because he's so good.
Yeah, and when I think I saw a stat, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stoney, you may have it in front of you, but the average yards per catch against him ended up being like 3.3 yards.
Yeah, something like that. I don't have it.
It's a ridiculous number.
Right,
and
in 12 of 15 games, and there was one. This is one thing I looked that was towards the end of the season. So 17 games weren't completed. He gave up 2 or fewer catches in 12 of 15 games. That's for a rookie cornerback.
Yeah.
Okay, so when the voting's revealed on all this, nobody else enters the conversation.
No, it's those two.
It's those two. What's his name in Seattle? Woolen will be third, I would assume.
Yeah. Well, though, considering, look, we had
Tariq Woolen tied for league lead in interceptions with, what, 6?
Yeah, something like that. James Houston might get a couple of votes. 8 sacks in 6 games.
A lot of redrafts. He goes in the top 25, which is absurd.
Of course. That just shows you how great Brad Holmes is. Huh?
Yeah, and I guess the next question then, if we've settled, on the fact that Sauce Gardner is Rookie of the Year, you could have 2 guys for one team, Offensive Rookie of the Year with Garrett Wilson, Defensive Rookie of the Year in Sauce Gardner for the Jets. Overall, who had the better draft? The Jets or the Lions?
Well, you got to say that. Well, I have to look at their other selections later in the round. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But their top 2 are better than the Lions' top 2. It's.
Yeah, they had 2 higher picks.
Yes,
too.
exactly.
Right, but you got more. You got great
you did
production
move
out
up
of a
to get
6-round
Williams.
pick.
Williams,
you just talked about Kirby Joseph as being one of the best picks that Brad Holmes, one of the top 3 picks Brad Holmes has had.
Right. I think overall the Lions had the better draft because they got every single player has contributed except for the 7th-round pick.
Right.
I haven't seen. I don't know the whole Jets draft board. So I haven't looked.
And I think there's an incomplete on that because you got to do Williams versus Wilson.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.